Good evening, Chicago. Or good evening, America. Hello, Chicago. And what's up, West Side? This is P Ray of Black Excellence Hour, a show for people with high self esteem. You could have been anywhere on this chilly Sunday evening, and you chose to come and hang out with me today at Black Excellence Hour. And as always, I appreciate the company. If you are watching live on the Black Excellence Hours Facebook page, or on X at Chicago Red P, or at the Intellectual Radio Facebook page, YouTube page, please be sure to share the live, share the live. Today, we are going to have part two of the Paul Brown Jr. story out of Cincinnati that we were talking about 2 weeks ago. I invited them back so that we could finish the conversation. They at least deserve that. But first things first, as we do with every single show, we're going to get a dose of self esteem from the greatest president to ever do it. We're actually going to go see him get inaugurated next Tuesday. It is going down. So, shout out to Chicago Red. We are going to be in the building. We're going to the balls. We're going to hang out with the different delegations. A time is about to be had in Washington, D.C. And that man of the hour is Donald John Trump Sr. Let's get them going.
African Americans built this nation. You built this nation. You know, you're just starting to get real credit for that. Okay. I don't know if you know that. You're just starting to you built the nation. We all built it, but you were such a massive part of it. Bigger than you were given credit for. Does that make sense? Right? But through generations of blood, sweat, and tears, and you deserve a government that defends your interests, protects your families, and cares for our own citizens first. My administration is fighting with everyone and all our heart to reverse the pain inflicted by Democrat leaders and to deliver hope and opportunity and prosperity for all Americans, but for African American communities all throughout our land. Our agenda is lifting up citizens of every background, race, religion, color, and creed. But while we are fighting every day to build up our nation, the far left only wants to wreck, ruin, and destroy our nation.
All right. Again, that was Donald J. Trump letting us know exactly who we are and who we belong to in this great country. Let's get through the show really quickly, or the preface really quickly. First things first, I want to give a shout out to Alderman Raymond Lopez, who is really doing his job. So, as you may or may not know, I've been going up to City Hall for a couple of months now, but more recently, I've been talking about how the sanctuary city or the welcoming city policy prevents the Chicago Police Department from working in tandem with the ICE people when they get here, and that we needed to adjust that, because if ICE comes to Chicago and Chicago police cannot work with them, then it creates this tension. Well, friends, guess who caught on to it? Ray Lopez, my guy, Ray Lopez. Ray Lopez wants to introduce an ordinance or an amendment to the ordinance on Wednesday. So I'm definitely going to be in the building to give him the support. However, both Ray and Silvana Tabarez, so these are two Hispanic aldermen, they are currently pushing for an amendment called Rule 41 Notice. And in the Rule 41 Notice of the City Council Rules of Order and Procedure, they want to have the intention to discharge from committee and call for a vote, which is this big, long ordinance number. And they said that this was actually referred to committee on September 13th, 2023. They're saying that they want to do this because they want to make sure that people are being properly prosecuted. What he says to be it says the amendment to the Welcoming City Ordinance is not meant to address the breakdown of enforcement by federal government or the Byzantine labyrinth individuals people must go through in order to enter the United States in accordance with the law. Rather, it protects law abiding, undocumented citizens by changing how the city of Chicago engages with our federal partners when non citizens choose to disregard the law in four distinct and specific categories after they arrive in our city, ensuring that federal authorities will not have to scour communities for individuals that choose to commit dangerous crimes. It's going down, y'all. Wednesday, it is going down. We are bringing this sanctuary issue to a vote. Now, they're saying that they want people to be turned over to the feds in the following circumstances. One, gang related activities included to but not limited to loitering, intimidation, and recruiting. Drug related activities, including but not limited to purchasing, selling, distribution of any substance considered to be an illegal drug by the Food and Drug Administration. Three, prostitution related activities, including but not limited to solicitation, performance, and human trafficking of adults. Or D, sexual crimes involving minors. So I think that if people are doing those type of horrible, crummy things, they definitely need to be invited to leave. Oh, we are not live. No wonder I wasn't getting any people. This is weird, y'all. So I guess we've been catching it on the Intellectual Radio page. What's up to the people who are live? I've just been sitting here running my mouth. I'm like, where are the people? And I forgot to press the live button. Welcome to Black Excellence Hour, a show for people with high self-esteem. I gotta get myself a producer. This is like I've never not pressed the live button. So welcome to everybody who is now watching the show. Let's roll it back a little bit because that was super important. So I forgot to press the live button. What we were talking about is how the city council is going to amend the welcoming city ordinance on Wednesday. Ray Lopez, along with Savannah Tabarez, who are two Hispanic aldermen in the Chicago City Council, they are looking to deleting language in the current welcoming city ordinance in order to get people who are here in Chicago illegally and committing crimes up out of here. They're saying that they want an agent or agency of the city of Chicago shall be allowed to work with federal immigration officers or agencies only when an individual granted protection by these ordinance has been arrested for any of the following: gang related activities, including but not limited to loitering, intimidation, or recruitment; drug related activities, including but not limited to purchasing, selling, distribution of any substance considered to be an illegal drug by the Food and Drug Administration; C, prostitution related activities, including but not limited to solicitation, performance, and human trafficking of adults; or D, sexual crimes involving minors. So those are the three or the four things that the city of Chicago or these aldermen want to amend the sanctuary ordinance by doing. You would think that's a good idea. I would think that this is a good idea, but we got people in the city council right now who are saying that they do not want this to be amended. And I'm like, "What?" So one of the people who stuck out the most to me in this is William Hall. William Hall is a black man from the south side of Chicago, and he is going on and on and on about how how Ray Lopez and Susana Tavares are wrong for saying that they want to get these people out of here. And he's like, well, I'm going to go along Wednesday. I am voting no. And I stand and support the superintendent of police as he leads our city. The superintendent of police or the police department had said that they are coming out against this because they said that if they were to work with ICE, that would violate the state law. But the goal is to get these people out of here. So the black man who knows that illegal immigration hurts black wealth and black safety and security in his ward, he's going to vote no because he wants to align himself with the Illinois State Police. Hey, P. Ray is just here to report the news. That man is a clown. Boo to you, William Hall. But who also stuck out to me in this is this guy named Andre Vasquez. Listen to Andre. Roll tape.
I'm reaching out because there's an urgent call to action related. Hey everyone, it's 44th Alderperson Andre Vasquez. Happy New Year to those of you I have not been able to connect with. I'm reaching out because there's an urgent call to action related to something that is happening in City Council. So this coming week, a number of alders, led by Alderman Raymond Lopez and Alderwoman Savannah Tavares, are introducing some pretty harmful legislation that would allow CPD, the Chicago Police Department, to interact with ICE as there are potential mass deportations coming to the city of Chicago under President Trump. It's extremely cynical. It is not effective, and it may make us less safe. Even the Chicago Police Department is against the proposed changes, as it would complicate their jobs and actually making sure that they're doing what they need to focus on their core functions. If you're in opposition of that legislation being introduced, there are a number of things you can do. This Monday at 11 a.m., we're having a press conference at the first floor of City Hall. That's 121 North LaSalle. We're asking everyone to show up as a show of solidarity. On Wednesday, the city council meeting occurs where this matter will be brought for a vote. Now, in the morning, typically of the city council meetings, there's public comment where people can make their voice heard in advance of all these debates. So we're asking neighbors, if you're able to come to City Hall at 8 a.m. on Wednesday. And again, that's 121 North LaSalle. So if you have the time, we ask that you come, show up, show solidarity. And in the meantime, feel free to reach out to your local alder person to let them know where you stand, because when we
That's enough of that foolishness. So he's having a press conference for people who cannot even vote, so that they could stay here after being convicted of a crime and continue to create crimes on the people of the city of Chicago. Andre Vasquez is another clown in the city council. I don't understand how we got all these crazy people here, but Wednesday, we need the people to show up. I'm going up there Wednesday. I'm going to talk about terrorism as it relates to this exact issue, because this summer, a guy from Mauritania went to Rogers Park and shot a Orthodox Jew in broad daylight. And then when they went to his room, they found this map of Rogers Park and all of these Jewish targets where they were going to go and commit terrorism. This guy was not the only one. So I don't understand how we're in this issue of high terrorism and we got clowns like Andre Vasquez talking about making Chicago less safe. Ugh. Moving on, let's talk about these fires in California really quickly, and then we're going to bring on the guest. So, as we know, California is on fire. It started in the Paladis area, and now it's going down into Encino, and we know who lives in Encino, the Jacksons. Okay, Heavenhurst is at risk at this very moment. God bless Katherine Jackson. I digress. So the fire is starting to move into the valley area. They said if and when it gets to the valley, it's going to move through the valley very quickly and burn up Hollywood. We pray for those people. We know that the river that typically could have been used to put out the fire has been diverted into the ocean because the liberals wanted to save the fish. We also know that the reservoirs were not full. They ran out of water for the fire hydrants, so on and so forth. And the liberal failure known as California. We want to bless those people who voted for them, who are now going to come join the red side. But I also want to bring up, there is a fire right now happening in the Bronx. An entire block is on fire in the Bronx right now, and it looks just like California. My friends, we are really being terrorized by terrorism at this very moment. People came here to set things on fire and cause chaos. So we got fire on both coasts at this very moment. And we also pray for the good people in the Bronx. These look like high rises, and they are literally on fire at this very moment. Moving on, we also know that they meaning these liberals are always trying to trick us. And so the trick that they have right now is a trick where they are combining the shelter systems in the city of Chicago for the Americans and the illegals. Right before the show started, I got a little bug put in my ear, and they said, P. Ray, do you know that the shelters really aren't closed? They actually just reopened them as homeless shelters because the illegals are looked at as homeless. So this is a way for the city of Chicago to divert its homelessness funds to house illegals while Americans are still outside sleeping on these cold, snowy sidewalks. This is happening in real time right now. And we are here to tell you guys we are not going for this in 2025. We are not. laid the seeds in 2024 to harvest in 2025. And we hope that we'll be able to do that via the 47th administration of the United States of America and Agenda 47 under Donald John Trump Sr. With all that being said, I'm going to bring on our guest so that we can continue the conversation that we were having earlier. If you'd like to join the queue, 773-345-9977, 773-345-9977. Let's take a caller really quickly before we actually get to our guest. Welcome to Black Excellence Hour.
Let's recall Brandon.
Recall Brandon.
Yeah, so there's a building, there's a block of fire in Bronx.
Right now.
Wow, I'll have to check it out. Huh. Well, I was on Urban Talk Radio this morning, our favorite station, of course, and I brought up quite a few things, and I said, because they all want to rile against Trump. I said, it's not Trump that diverted the water to the oceans, the local people, just like here in Chicago, all these problems we have in all these big cities, are because of the Democrats. They all talk about, the trades and stuff. Well, Donald Trump promoted a lot of trades by having the Keystone Pipeline active and by having building the wall. That creates a lot of good trade jobs. Of course, Biden shut all that down. Of course, Trump will bring those things back again. And I said, people are so concerned about Trump, but, all this lawfare going on. I also brought up a fact. I'll send you some stuff. I think I might have. The governor of New York, she just signed a bill in December where they want to fine the energy companies $75 billion for contributing to climate change. How stupid is that? And there's some other action where they want to release. They want to file a bunch of lawsuits against these big oil companies for the same reasons. And that's why we have to have national tort reform. I said all these problems are because of Democrats and all these liberals. It's just going to hurt everybody. And these people are so focused about Trump. It's really silly.
Well, the good thing about this is that soon it will be over. And we'll be able to move past these people. And because the largest or the loudest liberal voice was coming out of California, and now they see that liberalism really is a curse, I think that the whole country is going to start moving to the right.
Well, you better hope and pray. I agree with you 100%. However, even when I bring out all these facts about, Bragg and all these people, and only Bragg more crime in New York, they ran a campaign against Trump. I said, these same people were all up in arms when Father Flater was unjustly accused by these people of doing something he didn't do. I said, so look at what you were concerned about, and look at how it wasn't fair, but yet you're overlooking the same thing with Trump. It's really astounding.
All right. Well, thank you, Jim.
Talk to you soon. Good job.
773-345-9977. Let's go to our guests. I think this is Miss Brown. Welcome to Black Excellence Hour. Hello? Hello? Okay, I'm going to put you back in the queue. Let's try some. Welcome to Black Excellence Hour.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. Oh, here you are, Miss Brown. How you doing?
I'm trying to make it. Thank you so much for having me and my brother on your show tonight.
So this is your brother from the 803 phone number?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
My brother Paul.
Okay, Paul?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, yes. Welcome to Black Excellence Hour. Welcome back.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So last time we had you on the show, you all were telling us about what happened with your father and, how the city of Cincinnati is playing this trick of sorts with your father and how he passed away and how they want to document how he passed away. We spoke before the show and you told me that you were able to put his story online and you were able to get more advocacy or more eyes on it. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, ma'am. And again, thank you so much for having us on the show. Basically, me and my family have been trying now for 7 years to get help because at this point now my father is buried without a death certificate. He was never pronounced dead by anyone because the coroner never came to the scene. On May 29th, like I said before, in 2017, we called to check on my father. And when he didn't answer his phone, his sister, which is my Aunt Viola, reached out to the police department to do a well check on my father. And the police department called her back and stated that my father was found dead in the apartment. And my aunt told them that he had kids, but the police said that the funeral home was coming to take my father's body. And my aunt said, no, wait, he has children. So to make a long story short, the police called the funeral home. The funeral home picked up my father's body without our permission. And basically they held my father's body hostage because once I called the funeral home and I told them I was coming up, they told me that we couldn't see our father. So during the time when I did call, I didn't have the location of my father's body. So we didn't even know where his body was at the time. The only thing we knew that he was at a funeral home in Cincinnati, Ohio, but they never gave us the address until 3 days later. When we did get the address and we went to the funeral home and we noticed my father was beaten in the face and we asked for an autopsy, the director of the funeral home told me no, that the police and the coroner said that it was medical. And I said, how could it be medical? And he was beaten in the face. And he told me, the director of the funeral home told me the coroner never came out to the scene. So my father was never pronounced dead by anyone. They just took his body to the funeral home. He was frozen for 2 years and 7 months at the funeral home in Cincinnati, Ohio. And the reason why he was frozen for so long, they lied to me and my brothers and sisters. They told us that the coroner wouldn't talk to them. And because the coroner wouldn't talk to them and they didn't have a doctor, they didn't have a death certificate. So by law, we couldn't transport his body back to South Carolina, where I found out a year later that they made a fake death certificate with my name on it because I'm the administrator over my father, saying that I was the informant, ruling it as medical, and I never knew a death certificate existed. When I reached out to the VA, because I find out they made 3 different death certificates, none of them was real. The first one was typed by an attorney that they hired to pretend he was representing us. But again, when he told me about the death certificate a year later, I was like, how could you do this? And he texted to me the first death certificate. And when I found out about the death certificate, I reached out to the funeral home and I said, I'm so hurt. My father's body is frozen at your funeral home. And you told me you didn't have a death certificate for my father. Do you have one? And there was a white lady answered the phone and she said no. And she slammed the phone in my face. 2 weeks later after that, the new director called me and he said, we could have been took your father's body. And I said, sir, do you have a death certificate for my father? So the second one was emailed to me. It was handwritten, didn't have a seal on it. So I said, wait a minute, my father's a Vietnam veteran, Purple Heart. Let me go to the VA for help. So I went to the VA. I spoke with Miss Patricia Brown. She gave me a third death certificate and she said, I'm so sorry. The doctor never signed your father's death certificate and it was void. And she said the only time the VA gets involved if your father was up under our care, if he died up under us. So I'm looking at 3 different death certificates that's not even real. So I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on? So when I found out none of them existed, and I called the funeral home back and I said, what are you doing? I found out the death certificate that you made, I went to the VA, the doctor at the VA never signed the death certificate. So what are y'all doing? So everything got quiet. I had a dream my father was being buried. So I called my brother Paul. I said, Paul, something is wrong. Let me call the courthouse in Cincinnati. When I called the courthouse, they asked me, they said, your name Patricia Brown Bamberg. We have a court date for the remains of your father's body. The funeral home wants the body. So I was like, wait a minute, I never got served. How could they have a court date? They never served me and my siblings. So I asked the guy, it was a white guy, answered the phone. I said, could you give me information? He said, well, I would send you the application. You send me your email, then I'll forward everything to you. So when I gave him my email, he sent me everything. The funeral home had a bill for $62,000, but they said that they don't want the money at this time. They want the body because they invested in the body. So although my father was frozen 2 years and 7 months at the funeral home, they stole the body. They kept my father's body hostage all that time. We never gave them permission. So I went on Twitter, and me and my brother and my sister, we went on Twitter, and we made a video of my father speaking out to the world, asking for help, because he was a Vietnam veteran, Purple Heart, and he was murdered in his own home at the age of 69 years old. The coroner never came to the scene. They refused to do an autopsy on my father's body. My father was murdered before Mr. George Floyd was, but a lot of people never knew about it because they covered my father's murder up, and that's what's going on now.
I got a couple questions for you. Why does what interest would the funeral home have in the body? Why would they want the body instead of the money? Or
Good
why do you think? I
question.
can't. Let's ask that. Why do you think?
The body, to me, the body is the evidence, and it had to go to court because they have to get possession of the body to get the insurance policy. I think they had a big insurance policy over my father because where he was living at after he passed away, and I called the light people, I found out the lights wasn't even in his name. He was dealing with PTSD. So I feel the landlord was using it as a nursing home. I feel that they went to his house and they killed him, and they wanted to make sure they get the money, insurance policy. So in order for them to get the insurance policy, because we're the children, they had to be over the body. And I feel the landlord, the funeral home, the police department, all of them was working together. And the reason why I say the police department, the police put themselves on the scene when they say they knocked down my father's door. They put that on the police report. But the problem that I have with that, piece of the door was up under my father's body. If he's already dead, that means he was standing up when they knocked the door down.
Right.
They put themselves on the scene. And the worst part about it, the witness, I spoke with the witness years later, and he told me that it was him and one other officer took my father's body out of his apartment on a Saturday. But the police lied on the incident report, stating that they took his body on a Monday, and the fire department was there. The investigator from the coroner's office was there. The coroner declined to come out to the scene when the witness told me no one was there but one officer. So meaning when we called, my father's body was already gone from his apartment. But the biggest thing, the police closed my father's case the same day. How you walk in a house and you see a man on the floor beaten with his pants down, his penis cut, his eye knocked out the socket, his hands up in the air in a surrender position, and you close the case the same day.
This is a lot. This right
Yes,
here
ma'am.
is a lot. Um,
Yes,
because
ma'am.
like I said, it's so absurd. It is so absurd that, as you just give us more and more details, it's just more and more outrageous. So what was the conclusion? How did you all have a funeral for him and bury him eventually?
Well, what happened? I want to say this here from the beginning when we did a YouTube video. After they took the body and we couldn't move him when they had him at the funeral home, and they used the law for their own personal use, and they told us we couldn't transfer him back to Baltimore, South Carolina. We did a YouTube video, Paul Brown Jr. story, reaching out for help, and so this attorney called us out the blue, stating that he wanted to fight for our civil rights. Our father being a Vietnam veteran, he flew down from Cincinnati, Ohio. We gave him my father's medical records, over 1,100 copies. He made copies and he was working with the funeral home and he made the fake death certificate.
Wow.
So my father is buried and we need help. We have to resume his body. That's why we need any help anybody can help us with, but we can do a full autopsy because we had one done after we fought to get his body and we went to court. They didn't know he was coming. The judge gave us 7 days to get my father's body. She looked at me and my brother and she said, when I come back on Tuesday, if the body's not gone, the funeral home can have him. And they was in a little private room. Everybody was white except me and my brother and the first director from the funeral home, Jonathan. So me and my brother, we got my father's body in 3 days. We transported him to another funeral home in Columbus, Ohio. And somebody helped us do an autopsy. But the doctor said because he was frozen, they couldn't do a full autopsy. But the doctor ruled it as homicide. He said the scene was disturbed, the table was broken, and he asked the officers, the FBI, to open up the case to do a full investigation. I spoke with the FBI 2 years ago. They still didn't do anything to help us. Even the United States attorney from Cincinnati, Ohio, they didn't do nothing to help us at all. They covered his murder up. Yes, ma'am. He was murdered before Mr. George Floyd was.
What did the FBI say to y'all?
Well, I gave them the information and they told me that they would get back with me. When I called the FBI personally myself after the witness called me, and I called her back and I said, listen, I have a witness telling me when he went into the apartment to get my father's body, it was on a Saturday and it was only one officer and the coroner never came out. And I told her, please open up the case. I told her this is enough information to open up the case. She said, no, it's not enough. Having a witness is not enough information to open it up. Because if you open it up, you can go back and look at the cameras, see who was in my father's apartment on May 29, 2017. But if you don't open it up, then guess what? It's a cold case. And it's wrong. It's wrong. My father, he fought for his country, a Vietnam veteran, Purple Heart. He served his country, saving lives. And when he get in his old days and he need help, hey, we're the kids. We're here to help him. And anybody who believe in, if this was your family, your father, your mother, your sister, your brother, how would you feel?
I know if it was
It,
my
it
daddy,
hurts me.
I like it's everybody
Yes,
that listens to
ma'am.
this show knows that P. Ray get down with Ray Charles Easley. Okay, so if it was Mr. Easley, oh my God, I would be going crazy, crazy, crazy on Cook County. So I truly, deeply, deeply, deeply sympathize with you. When
Yes.
does Ohio law state that people must have a death certificate to be declared dead? And if so, would you have any way to sue your county for not declaring your father? Would that be like
Good
negligence?
question.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes. First of all, you can't move a body without the coroner coming there pronouncing him dead or the investigator from the coroner's office. But after the witness told me that him and an officer who didn't have on a uniform, they took my father's body out of the house, they rolled him up in a white sheet, and they put him in the back of the van, the funeral home van, and they took him to the funeral home. So he told me the coroner never came to the scene, but you have to pronounce somebody dead before you move the body. And any time that a police officer come on the scene and they see that a person got their pants down, penis cut, eye knocked out the socket, they don't supposed to touch anything, nothing. They're supposed to call the coroner. The scene was supposed to have been taped off, but none of that happened. Instead, they took my father's body to the funeral home without the consent of me and my siblings. They covered up the murder. And the clothes that he died in, they threw away the clothes too.
Wow.
Yeah, all the evidence and everything in his apartment. When we finally got access to his apartment a week later, because we was banned from his apartment and the funeral home. When we did get access to the apartment a week later, they took all of his furniture, his wallet, everything. And the reason why we knew what he had, the director of the funeral home, the investigator from the coroner's office gave us a disc with the pictures of my father on the floor dead, in his long johns with his pants down, penis cut, and his furniture in his apartment. But they threw all the evidence away trying to cover up my father's murder. My father's murder wasn't even it wasn't even in the newspaper. So nobody really never knew about it. They covered everything up. So how do you ban us from my father's apartment? We're the children. By law, we're supposed to have 30 days access to everything. But instead, we went to the police department and the officer came outside and he told us it was nothing he could do because my father didn't live there. And later I found the officers standing over my father's body in the dark with his license, showing he lived there over 10 years. And nobody in the apartment had on a uniform. No one. I see in the pictures, one guy had on tennis shoes with blood on it.
Wow.
And one guy had on brown pants. So they killed him. And I feel they was making a mockery of it. But it so happened we got the pictures. Yes, ma'am. And they was going to cremate him with his own money.
Wow.
And in the state of Ohio, they tried to treat it as the police on the police report put on there that he was indigent, made it look like he was homeless. My father got over $5,000 a month. So in the state of Ohio, if a person is homeless and they found dead, the city would do a cremation free. So they have to hold the body 48 hours. But I called within those 24 hours and they couldn't do a cremation. And the sad part about it, the judge, when I told her the death certificate wasn't real, she told me to stop talking. And my brother Paul stood up and said, "You gonna treat us like that? My father's a Vietnam veteran, and you're not gonna let me talk." So all of a sudden, the doors in the courthouse flew open. Two white officers came inside the courthouse, and she looked at us and she told the officers, "Get them out of here." We was escorted out. We was detained. Yes, in Cincinnati, Ohio. This is going on.
Are you currently living back in South Carolina, or are you still in Ohio?
Oh, I never lived there. My father was living there, but we're from Barnwell, South Carolina, and we finally got my father's body, and he's buried, but he was never pronounced dead by anyone. So we're fighting to resume his body. We need help. We need money to get an attorney. If any attorney is listening, and if you can take our case, please help us. We need an attorney. We need to do a full investigation, open up the case. We have to resume my father's body. He has to be pronounced dead because no one never pronounced him dead. And we have to do a full autopsy because I think they shot him too because he didn't have a bottom lip. And the reason why I feel they shot him, the investigator from the coroner's office, when I went to speak with him, me and my brother and my mom, he told me the police said they had to turn him over to check him for bullet wounds. So if you thought he was shot, if the police thought he was shot, why he didn't call the coroner? We're in a situation, a coroner don't come to the scene and pronounce somebody dead. And when we called the coroner, they refused to talk to us. No help. I've never heard of anything like this in my life.
And me, like I said, I'm sitting here in a state of shock. I don't even know where we can begin to. Do you have, what's the name of the judge that put you all out?
Judge Karen. That's her real name. But the thing about it, the paperwork that was sent to me, when I called and I spoke with the guy and he told me that it was a court date, December the 3rd, the paperwork I have, her name is not even on there. It's another judge, Judge Rankler. He's a guy. So when we walked in the courtroom and we saw her on the stand, I'm like, wait a minute. She's not even on the paperwork. And when we told her, we said we never got served, she helped the funeral home.